Good night. Good night to our viewers. Good night to our panelists that we have in studio tonight. Good night to each and every one of you. As we start tonight's show, let me just take a moment to give credit to Devin Bisoon, Kumar, Nohar Singh, the entire Globespan team that's working hard behind the scenes to make our shows possible. There's been a lot of interest for these political shows, especially given where we are in today's Guyana's history today. And so we'd like to call upon sponsors and contributors in any way that you would like to come on board. Please feel very welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, our viewers out there, nomination day has come and gone. An election campaign is obviously in full swing. Already, the political parties are in trenches, rallying their supporters, and we're actually seeing the true value of many persons emerging. There is the PPP with its civic component, and there is the APNU/AFC, which represents the second time in Guyana's history the coalition formed the government, the first time being before independence in 1964. So history has been made, and we have certainly seen that the more things change, the more they seem to stay the same. But history is once again being made. Even more importantly and more historically is the fact that for the first time in Guyana's history, we are utilizing Section 22 of the Representation of the People Act, Chapter 103, where parties after nomination they can still come together to produce a joint list or a combination of lists, quote unquote, per Section 22. To put simply, parties can go to the election singularly on their own strengths and merits, but ultimately have a combined position for the distribution of seats. Even though it is allowed in Guyana and has been allowed in law for a long time, this is certainly a new paradigm for us. And it can only mean well for us all and for our future. To be clear, Section 22 reads in part, subject to subsection 2, two or more lists of candidates may be joined for the distribution of seats, but not for the purpose of voting. If the representative and deputy representative of each list so joined gives notice accordingly in writing to the Chief Elections Officer not later than the 25th day before election day. And lists so joined are hereinafter referred to collectively as a combination of lists. So that is a quote, a direct quote from Section 22. It is interesting, therefore, that this new paradigm is here. And this time going into the general elections, we have three parties who have agreed to have their combined list or their joinder list. And we have these three parties with us here tonight. I'm sorry that Mr. Ramkaran is joining us a little late, not a representative from a New and United Guyana. But tonight we have representatives from New and United Guyana, and they're supposed to be represented by Senior Counsel Ralph Ramkaran. We also have the Liberty and Justice Party, Mr. Lennox Schumann, and the New Movement, Dr. Asha Kisoon. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our program tonight.
Thank you, Yogi. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in quite some time. I think the last time I saw you was 2016 or so, but it's good to be here. And hello, Asha. It's good to see you too.
Thank you for having us. Good night, all.
Thank you. Well, and to the viewers out there, welcome to tonight's program as we want to focus on this new paradigm. And to ask, meanwhile, we are waiting for ANOG representative to come in, to ask our two panelists here tonight, what prompted you? What's the thinking behind having this joined the list?
Okay, then I think I'll take a start here, if that's okay.
Sure.
Simply put, it's the call of the people that's led us to this. We know that this is a historic election coming up, and in the best interest of the people to break old ways and division that has been plaguing our nation for so long, we decided to put all egos aside, all selfishness aside, and come together simply for the people. So that's the easiest way to put it, so everyone understands.
Right. Mr. Schumann, go ahead.
Well, there has been a long cry for what I'd say for the smaller parties to work together. Of course, working together, you could work in a variety of ways. One of those would be to coalesce and form a super bloc, if you're to put it that way. And the second component is potentially to utilize Article 22 of the Representation of People's Act, which is what we did. But that being said, I want to maybe jump ahead a little bit and take a look at the effects that this joiner of the list has already had. Just the presence of what I'd say new, because they're not small parties. Some of us are contesting 6 regions, so that's not small anymore. It's new parties at this point.
Correct.
So some of us, the effects that we are having on the ground with these 2 political parties, we have actually started to force them to work together. If you look at what happened in terms of the nomination day, for example, they could not agree on anything for the entire tenure of the APNU-AFC's administration, but yet they could agree that nomination day will be on January 10th. They could not agree on, let's say, how to go about addressing the issue of Mr. Sharandas, but yet all of a sudden they grew a conscience. They did not grow that conscience in 20 years, but all of a sudden they grew a conscience and figured out that, well, maybe Mr. Lennox Schumann probably should not be on scene. But there is little, what I'd say, little morality that they actually have, because I know for a fact that there are members of the PPPC's list, and there are also members of the APNU-AFC's list who are dual citizens, and yet GCOM has sought to do nothing about that. So that in itself, we've identified maybe the 3, or the tripod that has stagnated Guyana for this long. The tripod being the PPPC, the PNC, and GCOM. Because if you look at what happened, GCOM has actually, what I'd say, not functioned in the people's interest, and that is where we're at today.
Okay, gotcha. So just to remind the viewers out there that this is something brand new. And let me say this to you guys, to the 3 of you, congratulations. There is something that is refreshingly brand new. The article in the Act allows parties to have a joiner list. It's never been used before. And so obviously it allows for a fresh, new kind of thinking going to the future. Senior, welcome to our program tonight.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to be late. Good evening, folks.
Good evening, Ralph.
That's all right. We'll let you make up for it. Let's get right into it. We had some opening comments from both Dr. Kisoon and Mr. Schumann with regards to the joiner list and you know what led to this moment. And as you're here, let me put you on the spot. You have been you are among the most senior legal minds in this country, as well as the head of a new party. You're well aware of the laws, and you yourself would have helped to shape many of these changes, constitutional changes in the past. So tell us a little bit, Mr. Ramkaran, about Section 22 of the Act and its ramifications, and you know what flexibility you find in your wisdom that now allows you and your 2 partners to propel forward.
Well, you know, we had some talks with the other new parties, with Liberty and Justice, and with the new movement, even before they were established, with Dr. Ashok Kisoon. And the objective was to work together. We understood from the very beginning that to have to join our parties together, to have common candidates and all of that was not an easy thing. That would have been very difficult. So we started with the idea of working together. It never materialized before the nomination day. Even though we all maintained a friendly relations and expressed the intention. After the nomination was completed, we felt that there was a possibility under Section 22 because it's a unique section. I don't know if it's contained in other constitutions around the world, but it's unique to Guyana and unique to our situation with the number of small parties that we have and have always had, except in recent elections they dwindled somewhat. But it allows us to maintain our independence, maintain our presidential candidate, maintain our policies, appeal to whoever we want to appeal to in whichever area we want to appeal to, and at the same time, excuse me, at the same time, to have a unity, present a united face to the people of Guyana. And for us to present that united face is something that has never been done before in Guyana.
Right.
Parties don't do that. Parties present a hostile face to each other. So we are able to present a united face. And what it does, it enables us to form what is called in the section a combination of lists. We combine lists. Our votes are counted separately and then combined, and the seats are offered to the combined group of parties. So it helps us to save votes which will not be wasted. Because if, say, 5,000 votes give you a seat, and we get 2,000, and Liberty and Justice get 2,000, New Movement gets 1,000 or 2,000, say. All of us get 2,000 each. Those votes are wasted. They're not counted because none of us, because 2,000 doesn't give any of us a seat. But 6,000 votes will give us together a seat. Absolutely. So we're therefore we have to share the seat. Nevertheless, it takes away one seat from the two main political parties.
Correct.
That's what
which is something that none of the parties had ever even had cause to think about before. So it is a completely new paradigm.
Think about it, and my information is that they are flabbergasted, they're worried, they're troubled, they're discombobulated, and that's my information.
Yes, I guess if I was one of the parties, I would be really scratching my head too. You know, it's like worrisome. Yes, Leonard.
Let me get in there, right? I think there's a slight oversight in the public that has not made it to the public domain. Is the tremendous amount of work that was put in by the various teams from the three parties. We have had people who stayed up really, really late. Let's say Dr. Mark DeFrance, Dr. Gerald Ford, Mr. John Flores. Those were teams that pretty much did the heavy lifting. And they did everything that they could to get all of us to the table, worked tirelessly to get us there. And I think in the end, you are seeing the product of that hard work. We all recognize the importance of this electoral cycle as Asha presented. And I think the Guyanese public need to understand that if we miss this political cycle and we cannot, let's say, displace these two Leviathans, then Guyana would be lost eternally.
That's right.
And I like the way Ralph put it. There seems to be a little bit of worry in the other two camps.
Well, thank you for that, because Asha, I'm going to come to you in a moment, because we want to get to not just look. You guys obviously will have to work out your agreement as to how you're going to share whatever seats you get from a combined list. But Senior, you know this, coalitions don't have a good history, and if they do have a history like what we have in Guyana, it is not necessarily good, right?
Oh yes, definitely.
Right. So how do you, and I'm going to pose it to Dr. Kisoon first, how do you envisage your party holding its own if you have, let's say, a small number of seats or a number of seats that is not divisible by 3?
Well,
Okay.
Sorry, Asha, you go ahead.
It's all right. Just to let everyone know that we already made agreements on how we are going to divide our seats. I think our legal mind is going to get into the details of it specifically after. Before getting into the joiner, the purpose of not collating but getting into the collaboration for us was that we must hold our identity, the essence of who we are as a party. But I must mention before going on that the feeling is so different as I sit here with this panel of two people. All the time when you get into a conversation, you know, you need to watch your back and it's a political arena, it's dangerous. But now it feels like somebody has my back, two people, in fact. And by working together, it's also the same feeling with the population. Since we've done this, people have been calling me day and night to get on board and support because for the first time, they feel that it's about them, the people, their interests, the issues, making Guyana better for them. And they see us now, politicians, not trying to get self benefit or our own gain, but a gain for them. The arrangements are that depending on how many votes we get, that's how the seats will be divided. If you win a seat full out, it's yours. It doesn't have to be partitioned or shared. But the extra votes that go into the pot, depending on how much that comes from each party, that's how they would be divided. But I do think Ralph could explain it better.
Yes, and I'm going to come to you, Senior. Just to give some kudos to I think Mr. David Khan, who was asked the question actually that 2 + 2 + 2, who would then be the parliamentary representative, which you have answered in a way, Dr. Kisoon. Senior, one of the intricate questions that could be asked is that the three parties may have differing primary goals as their campaign or as their manifesto point, so to speak. How then would you look at what you're going into while keeping the overall aims and objectives?
I wouldn't say we have different goals. I would say we have different emphases. TNM, I can't speak for the TNM, but they have been very strong on youth issues and youth participation. It's not their only issue. They have broad issues, but that has been a focus of them.
Yeah.
The liberty and justice also have a wide agenda, but liberty and justice has concentrated a great deal of its effort on indigenous people and the needs of the hinterland community. ANOG has a wide agenda as well, but we have been focusing, our flagship issue is constitutional reform leading to shared governance. So we have agreed that we will continue to focus on our flagship issues, our major issues, and continue to discuss and debate with the people of Guyana. We don't see a conflict with anything that we have been talking about. The other thing is, we have some basic views. One is we will not join in coalition with either of the major parties. We will not join with one of the major parties, but support one of the major parties to keep it in office. That doesn't mean we will not, if there is a plurality, if the government holds office on a plurality, that doesn't mean that we will not support the government or support policies of the government.
Right.
But we will not do so for the purpose merely of having it hanging into office. So those are some of the basic principles we have agreed to. And
Senior, technical question for you. Is the window period closed for other join the list or for other people to join with you if they so want to?
That's a difficult question to answer because it would mean that if somebody wants to come in with us, I presume that there is no difficulty, there's no technical difficulty in a party writing to the Elections Commission and saying it wants to join this combination and we giving our approval. There is still time. I think February the 5th is the last day.
Indeed.
So,
Yes.
so so that another party can do that. And there are several small parties, but two of the main new ones are Change Guyana and the Citizens Initiative. Well, Change Guyana issued a statement today saying that it's too late and some other things, and they don't want to lose their own traction which they have built up. Change Initiative has not been interested, and some of them have made statements. But they were both invited to these discussions. TCI was invited to these discussions, and Change Guyana was invited through Injustice. They were in touch with Change Guyana, and they invited them to the discussions, and they did not participate.
Okay, Lennox, let me, I mean, you have been a voice in the political scene for quite a while now, and you've always advocated not just for people in the hinterland areas, but for good governance and for accountable and transparency and stuff like that. However, if we can for a moment focus on the Amerindian peoples and the people in the hinterland areas and all these other areas that your constituency where your strength might lie, and correct me if I'm wrong if that is indeed your strength, are they fully backing such a position? And have you been able to reach out en masse to all of them to educate people about what's happening?
Well, as the vice chairman, or as the previous immediate past vice chairman of the National Two Shows Council, my portfolio was actually governance, forest governance, and legal issues. Not that I'm any legal expert, but just to decipher how various policies and legislation would impact Indigenous peoples and communities. So that is a little bit about what I did previously or prior to forming the Liberty and Justice Party. In terms of what happened is, if you look at the history of Guyana, right? Christopher Columbus, we rescued him on our shores, and then the country, they enslaved quite a lot of people. Then after that, they had indentured servitude, but both of those ended. The slavery ended, it was abolished. Surely a lot of people suffered. I don't want to make light of that. And same thing with indentured servitude. But the suffering of Indigenous peoples never, ever ended. And if you were to look back in the history of Guyana, pre and post-independence, you would see some of the results. If you go to communities like Barmita, one of our, what I'd say, most neglected communities, you are going to see some of the ills. Police officers go up there, I don't want to implicate myself in a legal battle here, but there have been accusations of statutory rape in that community by various government operatives. The Indigenous peoples are taken advantage of, and that happens across Guyana. So for us, do we have a monolithic group in that sense? Not really. But I would tell you that we have enough of the Indigenous peoples behind us that we stand a very, very good chance at this point to ensure A, that the Indigenous people's issues are represented, and B, to also force a minority government, because we are the swing vote. The Indigenous voting bloc is the swing votes in Guyana. And no one gets into the big house without courting us. I said it in 2016, I said, the people who take care of the Indigenous peoples will benefit, will be the benefactors come next political cycle. And if you don't look after the Indigenous peoples, you are going to feel the squeeze. People took that as a threat, but it is a reality. And we are actually showing them that that is a reality because they have been neglected for so long.
Good, thank you. Dr. Kisun, we'll come to you. We're going to go off on a commercial break. We'll come to you next to tell us about your political party and the feeling within the party, within the membership itself, with the Joinder and history in making. Let's take a commercial break. Over to Devin.
January marks 1 year since Globespan 24x7 embarked on this initiative to offer a platform that brings in all sides, all points of view, and all concerns. Viewers in Guyana and across the world are participating in discussions that are bringing to light issues relating to social, economic, and political matters that have been plaguing our nation. Globespan's platform offers Guyanese to express their concerns and discuss solutions in the political realm, thereby addressing the polarized situation. Discussions also include social ills such as alcoholism, domestic violence, and suicides that have been plaguing the people. The platform also mitigates the brain drain by having speakers that live in Guyana and across the world participate in these discussions. This concept will avail a broader view for the benefit of all Guyanese, so Globespan needs your support to offset the expenses. Kindly contribute by clicking the link in the description to help support these programs.
Thank you. And we're back. Dr. Kisun, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Let me just express that this is a power combination. That is the feeling in the new movement among the young people. We believe that with a new United Guyana, which has some of the best legal minds in Guyana, and Mr. Schumann with the indigenous population, and us, the new movement representing youth, having a voice in parliament and issues affecting youth, that we could not have asked for a better trio to come together. So the feeling in the party about it is that it's the best way forward, it's breaking history, and we're happy with it, 100% supportive of this.
Thank you. So to remind our viewers out there, tonight we're looking at history and making. These three parties have utilized Section 22 of the Representation of the People Act, which allows them to go to the elections as individual parties, not losing their identity in any way, but thereafter the votes can be combined, their list becomes combined for the purpose of distribution of seats. Now, this is extremely important because it's the first time it's happening in Guyana, and I think Senior Counsel has pointed out there are not many places that you could refer to, other countries that is where such a happening has taken place. Now, Senior, I want to come to you on a different point. The election campaign has started. I know you guys are all out there, wherever you can go, stretching yourselves out thin. But with every election, there comes the feeling of disquiet. Is this the country we want? You see the hate, the animosity, everything building up. Is this what we want? And in particular, to hear of candidates calling on supporters I felt very alarmed to hear a person calling on supporters to remain at the place of poll after closure of polls. So as somebody who has been around the scene and has guided elections, and you have been Speaker at the National Assembly, your voice has weight in terms of your legal and your logical thinking. What are your thoughts at this current juncture?
Well, there's tension in the community because somebody will win and somebody will lose. Some ethnic group will win and the other ethnic group and its allies will lose. And that is why there is such disquiet. There's also disquiet because at every election there is some form of violence. The last election there was a great deal of violence in Sophia. Lots of property was no reason whatsoever. Just people were just whipped up. And even supporters of the PNC, even leaders of the PNC who were about, could not stop its supporters. So when you have people calling for following the ballot boxes and that kind of thing, it's very, very dangerous and should not be allowed and should be condemned.
Correct.
The ballot boxes in Guyana now have nothing to do with the freedom and the fairness of the elections. The issue of the ballot box is no longer a matter of concern, except that to ensure that the ballot boxes are properly constructed to ensure that they cannot be entered into.
Correct.
Now, counting of the votes is done at the place of poll. The statement of poll is signed by everybody present. Everybody gets a copy. And a copy of that statement of poll is pasted outside of the building so that the public gets a copy. It can be photographed or anything like that. After that finishes, the statement of poll is the document of importance, not what's in the ballot.
Correct. That is an extremely important point.
In the prior times, the ballot boxes were not counted at the place of poll. they had to be taken somewhere else to be counted. And that is why people were interested in going with the ballot box, remaining with the ballot box, and traveling with the ballot box to ensure that in the course of the trip, the ballot box was not tampered with.
Correct.
In the course of the keeping of the ballot box and the counting of the votes, these were not tampered with. Now that's not necessary. So there's no need to follow the ballot box. There's need to ensure that the statement of poll reaches the place where it's supposed to go. And if it doesn't reach that place, there are several people within the polling station who have copies, and there's a copy outside of the polling station as well. So the call for the following of the ballot box is wholly unnecessary. It is designed
correct. Right. Thank you. Now, Lennox, before you step in, I wish to also remind that the same act also has stringent penalties for loitering. In other words, people are not supposed to be within, I think, 200 feet of a polling station, and should not prohibit the access to the place of poll and so forth. So we all need to be careful. I think over the past decade or two, we have always been told, make your vote and go home. Clear the place. Even all spirits shops, Section 80 has to be closed on that day. No place of congregation on that day. Lennox, over to you. You wanted to make a point.
Yes, I wanted to say that there seems to have been a general degradation in how we choose politicians, and I think what the trio that you're seeing in front of us, or in front of you here, represents a different political ideology. I think the statements made by Ms. Lawrence is grossly irresponsible, and it is unbecoming of anyone in public office. I also think that anyone in public office, once their name is on a list, they need to resign from that post. They're no longer a public employee. They're now a political employee, and they need to make whatever arrangements. Take, for example, Ms. Janelle Christian, who still continues to function at OCC as the head of OCC, yet she's on the APNU AFC list. Had these people any integrity, they should have removed themselves or recused themselves from that place of employment, and say, look, I have been placed on a list. I'm now a political operative, and I'm going to execute whatever needs to be done politically. I'm no longer employed by the government per se. Mm-hmm. Now, I also want to caution, because of the inflammatory nature of some of these remarks. I think I read in the papers, and I can only quote what I see there, that Ms. Vala Lawrence also said that the performance in mathematics was very low, like a Bachman. Now, I find that grossly, grossly offensive. And these are the very same people that they're hoping to court their votes. They're hoping to court our votes. And if people want to understand our presence on the political stage is to guard and fight against the very same discriminatory language that emanates from both of those houses. I think the PPP leader also was caught on video, and it's on Facebook right now, saying that every Bachman who voted for the AFC is now realizing. And I think when you're seeing that from both of those camps, I think the answer as to why we are here should be very, very clear. We have been underrepresented. We continue to be marginalized. And I want to ask these leaders to desist from using such inflammatory and derogatory terms for Guyana's First Peoples.
Right. Well, that is very interesting. And it goes back to a couple of hundred years ago, and probably 100 years ago, with the colonial masters and their views of the then, the slaves and the indentured servants, and what they thought of us. And you're right. I mean, the derogatory thinking, I've always said that, people's true thoughts, their mental makeup is always come out. We have a whole saying, mouth open, story jump out. Dr. Kissoon, how positioned are you and the three parties in the Joinder list to make national statements? So, for example, one of the questions I have inboxed to me from someone, and Lennox just raised it, that there are people on the PNC APNU AFC list that are currently continue to hold public portfolio against conscience, against law, against good practice. Question one, would the three of you, in terms of national statements, be making combined statements about certain things? And question two is, what's your party's position with regards to the government continue to hold portfolio and continue to spend taxpayers' money while being on the list?
Okay, in relation to joint statements, even though we're not a coalition and we are working together, the agreement is that we sit down and discuss as parties together any statements that are to be released, that we agree upon them. Of course, the statements related to our parties particularly or singularly does not need to be shared because we have similar goals and vision, but joint statements must be agreed upon before. As for the government and all their illegalities, we have seen the plague that they've cast upon this nation over and over. And we stand firmly saying that we do not agree with what is being done, taxpayers' money being wasted, ministers continuing to function and influencing the nation in ways that they're not supposed to be doing at the moment. But they've gotten so accustomed to corruption, it's become second nature to them. And these are some of the things that we stand against firmly. It must be stopped. So this joiner of lists and this move that we made is one of those ways for it to go forward. Because in this collaboration, see that we're working together when the time comes after elections towards decisions, transparency, and letting the people see what is happening in the most fair way possible is the first step to breaking the traditional barriers that have been built up by these politicians. I must also say that they've been using the race card for decades like a fortress, hiding behind it, just not to face issues that affect the people. But the moment they take away the racial barriers, oh, the people they say, or the coolie man, or the black, and all this nonsense, the Guyanese would flourish as a united people. So that's one of our main objectives by coming together to break apart the racial barriers that we're facing right now.
And as I have you on, I mean, you please comment, and others can comment too. Between the three parties, is there any area that you would not have covered regionally?
I think all of the regions are actually covered by us collectively. Where we're joining our list, and people need to understand this. It is just in those regions where we're contesting communally, right? That we have in common. Those are the regions that we can join the list. But nationally, we could also join at a top-up level. But I want to revisit the question that you asked Asha there about any statement. There will be no more a profound statement than when we see the elections results come March 2nd as to what this trio would have done to make that statement public, because I think you could not find, I'd say, a more powerful statement than what the results will be, and we will show them.
That is so true. That is very true, because the elections basically is the voice of the people, the confidence of it. Senior, your thoughts on this joint statement and stuff like that?
Well, I would have thought that the biggest statement we have made was the silent statement of unity, which we have demonstrated to the people of Guyana. Our political parties do not come together. As far as I remember, it's a very long time ago, probably 1985, that the Liberator Party and the United Force came together. They won one seat, and then they had a falling out because Phelan Singh, who was the joint leader of the party, was Dr. Ganra, and Phelan Singh grabbed the seat over the protestations of Dr. Kumar, who said, look, we were supposed to get the seat. Nevertheless, Phelan Singh held on to the seat, and that was in 1985. The Patriotic Coalition for Democracy was established after that, but they did not fight elections together. They had no kind of the PCD broke up before the 1992 elections, so they were not an electoral force. They were a mobilizing force. We have come along So we're a new force with a new idea, a new initiative, a new proposal for the people of Guyana that allows them that demonstrates unity and allows them their independence. We
Correct.
certainly hope, I certainly personally hope, that we would be able to make public statements. The time is short, so there wouldn't be many, that we would be able to make public statements on important issues of concern. There's a lot that we share in common, and there's a lot that we can do to educate, influence, and mobilize the Guyanese people by taking common positions.
Right. Senior, as I have you on, what's your position from a legal mind perspective? I remember a couple of years ago, there was a public call for Luncheon to resign his portfolio because he was on the PPP's list. What's your legal thinking with regards to the ministers and other people currently holding on to their title and state assets and stuff like that?
Ministers are entitled to hold on to their positions until elections. So there's a caretaker government. There's a little different. Fundamentally, under the Constitution, ministers are entitled to hold on to elections until the election day, I believe. So there's no problem with that. What they should not do is use their office and the benefits of their office to campaign. That, I think, goes on quite a lot. Their vehicles should not be used. The gasoline that they get from the state should not be used for campaigning purposes. The aircraft they travel in should be paid for by themselves personally. But I believe a lot of this, in the past, not now, but now and in the past, have been violated.
But the business of the ministries basically are being run or ought to have been run by the permanent secretaries, right?
Yes, but the ministries are run, but no major decisions should be taken. No important contract should be signed. We are in caretaker mode, not only because of the recent problems over the no confidence motion, but once elections are announced and the proclamation made for elections, all governments on our system of government go into caretaker mode.
Correct. And what's the last one for you here now, Senior? What's the stop-off period with regards to public campaigning?
You can campaign up to 24 hours before the elections. I think 29th of February.
Right.
The last the evening of 29th of February is the last campaign day. We can't go beyond evening.
Right. Great. Lennox, I want to come to you.
There's one thing I wanted to touch on that Ralph brought up there about the caretaker status of the government. We also have to remember that in the CCJ's ruling, the president of the CCJ also stated very, very explicitly in his ruling that the government is a caretaker government, and they have not operated in caretaker mode since that ruling has come out. They continue to utilize state assets as though nothing happened, basically not respecting the CCJ's ruling.
Correct. And I guess the bigger picture here is that, does it set a dangerous precedence that, and the other question is, of course, what can you do about it? Other than people feel bad about what's happening, what action can you really take?
Well, here's what people can do to ensure that we don't continue down this path, regardless of who gets into office. What people can do is vote for the Liberty and Justice Party, vote for ANOG, and vote for TNM. Any one of us, for us to combine our votes and put an end to this madness that these guys continue on with.
Right.
I think until we do that, they are going to continuously, if you were to elect the PPPC or the APNU AFC, it will be viewed as an endorsement of their previous performance, and we know that the PPPC, they themselves had done the very same thing. So it would seem as though it's an endorsement of their previous actions.
Lennox, let's digress for a minute and talk about your status, because you did mention it. Thanks that you raised it in the beginning. You did raise it in the beginning with regards to the dual citizenship and the action being taken against you that you see as it's not a level playing field. I've gotten a question. I see Mr. Tularam has posted, and a number of other persons have posted the question with regards to your status as being the presidential candidate of your party. Are you still the presidential candidate of your party?
Absolutely. I will remain the presidential candidate of the Liberty and Justice Party until such time as there is, let's say, an act to remove me from the candidates list. We have to remember that under Article 163 of the Constitution, the sole institution that is given that right is actually the court. And it explicitly states in there also that the Attorney General or a private citizen can approach the court to have a candidate removed. So in my view, and maybe Ralph could probably provide better guidance, but I think it is beyond GCOM's remit to deal with the eligibility of a candidate. That is one component. The second component is, I had mused a bit on my Facebook page just to be able to shy off some of these trolls, that I will present my documents when I see Mr. Irfan Ali's transcripts. Now, I think that I'm going to wait and get gray. Maybe I'll meet Ralph wherever he's headed when he's done political life, and I will never see it. And I'm even sure that if Mr. Ali is to follow us wherever we go in the afterlife, that we still will not see it. So in that sense, I think I may be forced to present my documents before Mr. Ali does that, which we are fully prepared to do.
But isn't it chalk to cheese? I mean, there's no titular or academic qualification required by the Constitution, but there is a requirement for you to not have sworn any allegiance to any other state.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with that, and I fully intend on complying, right? But chalk to cheese or not, we are talking about the integrity of a presidential candidate.
Absolutely.
We're not talking just about a mere piece of paper or showmanship or anything. We're speaking about the integrity of a person.
I'm hoping to have Mr. Ali on this program sooner rather than later, and I will certainly ask the question too, as everybody is asking.
There's one issue
that I'm on that program when you do.
There's one issue I need to point out. Yes. The provision in the Constitution says that you are not entitled to go on a list of candidates if you have sworn allegiance to a foreign power. Lennox has said publicly that, look, I have put in my papers to the Canadian government in order to give up my citizenship, and I am waiting on confirmation of that.
But Senior, let me interject by saying the same thing Harman has said, the same thing Greenwich has said. Everybody has said the same thing.
Well, I don't know what they have said, but has Lennox not thereby rejected his allegiance to the foreign power?
Give me 30 seconds. I'm listening.
By saying to this foreign power, take away my papers, take away my citizenship, has he not thereby relinquished his allegiance to that foreign power? And therefore, how can the Elections Commission say that he's not qualified? If he told them, the nation, the people of Guyana, that, look, I have given up my papers, meaning I have relinquished my allegiance to this foreign.
I agree.
He therefore qualifies, in my view.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I agree
Here, let me show you a piece of paper that I have, right? It is a receipt that says literally that I have given up all of my citizenship documents to the government of Canada. So now if I have given all of these things away back to the administration, the Canadian government, how now can you come after Lennox Schumann? But that's a technicality that we are going to have to deal with. But I'm going to go back to this.
You also said that there were other persons on various lists who were dual citizens. I mean, I know there was, because it was in public space, there was Joe Harman and Carl Greenwich. I don't know of many more, but there may be more. But it would certainly be interesting to see who else there.
Well, Yog, but here is also something that people need to understand, right? And this is where I think it poses a very, very important question or risk. Why is it that Lennox Schumann is the only person that is being hauled through the coals when they have not provided the same degree of scrutiny to the other 600 plus candidates? I'm sure Lennox Schumann is not the only presidential candidate. Lennox Schumann is not the only candidate contesting elections. You have 600 plus other candidates who have not been scrutinized. Now that should say volumes in terms of the threat that the Liberty and Justice Party poses to the PPP and the PNC. And that being said, I will tell you that people look at dual citizenship as only in Canada and the US. But I would also like to suggest at this point that there are dual citizens on the PPPC's list and on the APNU AFC's list. And some of those are not only Canadian and Guyanese and not only American and Guyanese, but also Brazilian and Guyanese and Surinamese and Guyanese. But no one wants to delve into that because, once again, we've identified the third leg of the tripod in the failure of politics in Guyana, which is the Guyana Elections Commission. They cannot agree on anything, but they can agree that Lennox Schumann needs to be scrutinized more. Now, what does that say about the fear that they have?
But Lennox, let me say this with respect to you and your entire party, your entire constituency. I would presume that if worse was to happen, you do have backup and you do have orders ready to take the lead.
We do have, yes. We absolutely do have a plan B, we have a plan C. It would be, well, I'd say it would be unfortunate if any party walked into the political arena and think that it is just going to be a smooth ride, that's one. And two, that they don't have contingencies planned. And the Liberty and Justice Party is no different from many other political party and our party structure, and we do have a variety of plans that we can fall back on.
Okay, so just to the viewers out there, because somebody has just inboxed me, Mr. Schumann has just shown on screen his declaration or his giving up of his allegiances to any foreign state. And so that is a matter that I guess is outside of the scope of this discussion, but he is clear with his status and his remaining at the top of his list.
Yo, here's before we drop off of this topic, right? We talk about irresponsible statements, and to know that Bibi Shadick is going to go on public TV and make a pronouncement without first asking for verification, that seems quite contrary to what good practice is. The first step should be, look, we have seen that there are candidates on the list who may pose some question or some risk to the integrity of the electoral cycle. Well, the first thing that needs to be done is that we write the party and ask for clarity, to provide clarity on their position or their candidate's position. Mm-hmm. And after that is done, then you would be in a better position to make a pronouncement. But right off the bat, you cannot take a party position, like a PPP's position, and say, oh yeah, Mr. Schumann is out, Mr. Amkran is out, Ms. Asha Kissoon is out. Where is the formal communication that speaks to this? So our next course at this point is actually to take Ms. Shadick and the entire commission to court on the matter.
Right. So you're saying that you stand by your affidavit you signed, and basically GCOM has taken actions based on a suspicion rather than a confirmation.
Absolutely.
And it is outside of the remit to do so anyhow.
Absolutely. When we presented the list on nominations day, I made the statement very, very clear that I do not intend on perjuring myself, and the list that we are submitting has the integrity to satisfy the Constitution. I will not walk back on those words.
Thank you. Let's take a quick commercial break and we'll be back in a couple seconds.
Globespan's professional platform is now available for rental. Create your own content, promote your business, and reach hundreds of thousands of viewers in Guyana, United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Globespan gives you the ability to interact with viewers and guests to reach the multitude. Contact sales@globespan247.com for more information.
Support Globespan 24/7 initiatives by sponsoring our programs. Our goal is to bring all sides to the table, and with your help, this can become possible. With your support, we can shape a greater nation together. Contact sales at globespan247.com for more information, or inbox us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Thank you, and we are back. And just before I go over to Dr. Kisoon, let me say to our viewers, we're really thankful for this program tonight, because these three parties have created history by having a Joinder list. Next week, Wednesday, I'm telling you, next week, Wednesday, we're hoping to have Comrade Ramjatan and Minister Patterson on our show to have some discussion with their side of the coin and what's happening there. But Dr. Kisoon, your position and your party's position on this whole aspect of dual citizenship, and knowing that Lennox is part of the three here.
Okay, our position has been discussed and we support Mr. Schuman, but I'd just like to make it clear we're working with the Liberty and Justice Party. It's a group of people, professionals, that are not just Mr. Schuman, but an entire body of people. So even if Mr. Schuman, God forbid, is not the presidential candidate, our position is that we'll continue to work with the party and support what they stand for.
Wonderful, thank you. Senior, I'll come back to you on another point, and this is, the road ahead in terms of you all have wonderful teams behind you, but the road ahead in terms of really hitting election day, how is it that you see a difficulty to now face the electorate that we're joining ranks at the end of the day, but we are still coming to you individually? Is there any challenges you see in going forward here?
I don't see any challenges in going forward. I think we have the best of both worlds, because there are some people who might like liberty and justice who may not like us. There are some people who might like TNM but who do not like liberty and justice. So by maintaining our independence, we allow the people of Guyana, the electorate, to support the party of their own choice. While at the same time, those parties are in a position to cooperate. And I'm sure that the people who support our individual parties have no objection to that at the end of the day. Because people want to see things move forward in Guyana. And nothing has been moving forward. Things have been moving backward. And we have the possibility, because people know and understand that in 2011 there was a minority government. In 2012 the PPP lost the elections, but a government is in power with a one-seat majority. So people understand that it is quite possible, and I would put it strong, it is quite likely that this time around we will succeed in having a government with only a plurality. And unlike 2011 to 2015, we have a plan as to how to deal with this situation. APNU plus FC had no plan. They just wanted to remove the PPP and replace them, utilizing the same basic policies of corruption and so on.
Great. Thank you so much. Lennox, final thoughts, 30 seconds. We are down on program time, so we got to wrap up. But what's your final thoughts?
I want to reassure our supporters and the people who are looking and listening that what I committed to in January of 2019 to ensure that I abide by the Constitution is absolutely and honestly and clearly the truth. I do not intend on breaking the very laws that govern the country. You cannot. That's the poor way to start. So I'm in full constitutional compliance. We've dealt with that, and we continue to dialogue with GCOM to ensure that they don't misspeak, and we are going to take the necessary legal recourse, if needs be, to ensure that our supporters are not disenfranchised. And that being said, we look forward to a very strong partnership with ANOG and TNM to ensure. And I would jump on Ralph here a bit where I may disagree with him.
And I'm sorry, it's not the end of program time. I just made a mistake there. So carry on.
Yeah, but I want to jump on Ralph a bit. We have a strong possibility. I'm going to say, Ralph, I think we have, with this arrangement here, we have more than a strong possibility. We have pretty much guaranteed that there will be a minority government.
Yeah, sure, I agree with you.
Right. So I want to address more of the youth focus that, you know, the new movement would have been focusing on. What's the pulse out there? What's the young people's concerns with regards to really making a change in the country, and what confidence you have of people not just in Region 4 but across the country supporting your movement?
Okay, so the response from the young people has actually even surprised me. Since before we launched, people started coming forward because for so long they've been promised change, they've been promised jobs, they've been promised a better way of life. They call it the good life, actually. And nothing has been done for them. You go to Region 10, the unemployment rate with the youth is so high. You go to Berbice, it's the same thing. We're contesting in Region 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. And it's mainly the youth that come forward because everything that was promised to them has not been delivered. So the way forward for us is, in order for youth to have that voice, we have to be that voice. Because we can't depend on anybody to speak for us anymore or make promises to us. We need to do it for ourselves. So this election has actually brought more young people into the political arena than history has ever done. The among that have come forward are candidates, even from the other parties that we've seen. We're so happy that the youth are finally stepping forward into the political arena.
Right. Lennox, I want to come back to you with regards to the, you know, the Amerindians and people from the hinterland areas. Are you confident that you're providing a viable threat to status quo? Let me just preface it by saying this, that in the past, you have rightly said, in the past, the two larger parties, PPP, PNC, have been very confident of their ability to capture those votes, rightly or wrongly, but they did play with that voting segment a lot. What's your confidence level of the Amerindian votes and people from the Chows and all the other areas of Guyana that might have people of different background and so forth?
Well, let's go back a little bit. In 2016, the UNICEF published a report on the status of Indigenous women and children in Guyana. And in the 2017-2018 budget, there was no finances set aside. There was no articulation of that report in the budget when it was presented. That was neglected, and those are symptoms left by the PPPC because the study was conducted. I think it concluded in 2015. They presented the summary, and then they presented the report. So the symptoms of the issues that were left there by the PPPC were never really addressed by the APNU AFC administration. So there's no one that can say that they have addressed those issues. Now, in terms of the support, we have a great degree of confidence because what we are doing is opening the door. I know people talk about race politics in Guyana, but let's bring race politics into context. So long as the PPPC and the APNU AFC continue to exist, Guyana will only see an Afro or an Indo president. What we are trying to do is to open the door so that every single Guyanese has that opportunity to aspire to be the leader of the country. You have a lot and a quickly growing demographic of mixed people of mixed heritage. Now, what happens to them if they join one of these political parties? Does that mean that they cannot be a presidential candidate? We've seen tokens on both sides. The PPPC have their token as a prime minister, and the APNU AFC has their token as a prime minister, and it will continue that way. We have to literally break that cycle and ensure that that door is open to everyone. Now, how do we do that? We do that by lifting the most marginalized peoples in the country to ensure that they're given an equitable and equal opportunity to crafting and shaping their own futures. And that, unfortunately, that demographic, it's just the indigenous peoples who have struggled so long.
Got you. Councillor, I want to come to you on the other side of the electorate. You have been a part of the PPP and the PPPC virtually all your life up to probably last year. Um, and you have most certainly made an impact within the PPP. Have you found in recent weeks or months, or even more recently, have you found it going to be tough? Has there been any challenges and any calls from that area to say, what's going on, and to try to detract you from this, especially this Joinder movement that you have going forward?
No, not quite. I didn't leave the PPP last year. I left in 2012 when it was very difficult for me to stay. That's 7 years ago. No, I'm not in touch with anybody from the PPP. Still have friendly relations with the people that I knew and so on. But I'm not in touch with anybody, and I have not spoken to anybody in connection with my political activities or recently. But I got information today that they are very distressed and worried about this Joinder, and they see that it will bring us a lot of support.
Well, yes, and I'm reminded here, Lennox, that it kind of slipped me, but I'm reminded here by a comment coming into me that you yourself use the word token, and it doesn't seem to go down. It's not necessarily a nice phrase to use to represent Mark Phillips or who is the prime minister.
Yog, I make no apologies. I make no apologies for that, because both parties have used indigenous peoples as tokens also. We have 7 parliamentarians, the largest number in the history of Guyana, who are just tokens to these political parties. They make zero representation for the indigenous populations. We have a vice president who is not the first tier, he's not the second tier, he's not the third tier, he's the 4th vice president of the country. Now, if you tell me, can you get any more tokenistic than that? So I make no apologies for using the word token. Some people may feel offended, but you have to call a spade a spade.
Well, the thing is why I'm not comfortable with the phrase personally, because I am not, I'm mindful of a Mark Phillips, or I'm mindful of whoever might be your prime ministerial candidate, or mindful of whoever might be Dr. Kissoon's prime ministerial candidate, regardless of their race. And I see people balancing or attempting to balance a race issue as maybe a genuine reach to give light to their recognition of a problem.
I think for that statement, the genuine reach would be about as genuine as they are about constitutional reform. There's no genuine reach. Had they really wanted to extend that arm, they had 54 years to address that, and they could have done it. So there's no genuine reach in that regard.
That is true, and I think Senior Counsel Ralph Ramkran would have mentioned this in a last discussion I had with him about a month ago. That is because it's winner take all. Everybody just get comfortable when they win it all, and they find there is no need to change anything anymore. The fact that we have had some constitutional change is probably a miracle in itself. But Dr. Kissoon, what is your view with regards to the balancing of party cards? Because here is an idea that I raised to quite a number of parties, past and present. The Representation of the People's Act has in it a requirement of 1/3 of the names on the list being women. I have put forward a suggestion to say maybe there should be more change that requires a list to have all the races of, a proportionate amount. What's your thought on it?
Well, my thoughts are quite clear when it comes to racial barriers and sexism. There must always be a balance. Everybody must be represented. The people in my party, as young people, because the youth are the main supporters that we have, we don't see race. Race isn't an issue. We all sit together, we eat together, we campaign together. Never has the topic that, hey, you're an Indian, hey, you're black, here you're an Amerindian, you're African, you're mixed. It does not come up. It's a thing of the past. It's outdated. So for us, we disregard it completely, and we'd like the rest of the nation to fall in par with that.
Correct. But don't we have to also be careful if we ignore something that might be underlying without addressing it? But I get your point. At a time like this, it's best to just move on and say, you know what, those things are unimportant for where we are heading. Senior, what's your thought with regards to the leadership of the various parties coming up. Because one person said to me that, Yog, if you take the top 3 or the top 5 of all the parties and bring them together, you're really going to have a genuine set of people that can make a wonderful impact for Guyana.
I don't know if you're talking about the small parties, but that is certainly true for the small parties. Whether the parties can...
Thank you, Ralph. I like your confidence.
whether the people of the large parties can come together and have an agreement on any single thing, I doubt it very much. But coming back to the issue of tokenism and the issue of representation, I have heard the statement that Lennox has made about an Amerindian never being president of Guyana. I've heard African people saying, with the Indian majority population, well, the larger population, it's not a majority, winning elections, an African is unlikely to ever be president. Now, I quite appreciate the fact that Asha says that, and that is becoming more and more prevalent among young people, that race is not a factor in their deliberations. And hopefully that will get better and better as we go along. But the fact of the matter is that it's still something that agitates and animates people. Well, we have a plan to solve that. And the plan is that the constitutional reform will produce an executive that, whether you call it a cabinet, you call it a presidency, you call it an executive, that will be small in number, will be responsible for one executive member, will be responsible for several ministries, as happens elsewhere. And each year, one of the executive members will be president, executive president. So that will give the opportunity of Guyana being represented by an Indian, by an African, by a person of mixed heritage, by an Amerindian person, by a young person, by a woman, and so on. So that is something that we need to put in our constitution. Once we put that in our constitution, these problems will not disappear, but we can move on to other problems of a more serious.
Dr. Kisun,
I like that. Move on to other problems.
Yeah, Dr. Kisun, let me come back to you. With regards to, because I've asked this of Senior before, with regards to, let us just say that, together you have X amount of seats. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say you have one. Or you have any amount, but the fact is that, as Lennox said, let's just say scenarios there that there is no majority government because you have sway in your hands, the power in your hands. Ralph's top priority is constitutional change. If it is that you are doing a rotation, that it's your turn to sit in Parliament, will you be pushing constitutional change?
Definitely. You see, that's why I love this combination, and we call it a power combination, because we agree on these issues. We agree fundamentally what needs to be changed again, and constitutional reform is a big one. Just to let you know, we are confident in 10 seats the least with this combination because of the response. So I don't see it as a problem. I don't foresee it, but we support each other as long as for the benefit of the people.
Wonderful. And are you, to any one of you can answer this, do you see yourself taking away votes from what party are you taking away votes from, or are you exciting new voters?
Well, I think taking a general impression. We're taking away voters from from APNU. We're taking away voters from the PVP. We've taken a lot of votes away already from the AFC. And I think that people are now, people who still support these parties, or people who don't support any party at all, are now looking at us with a different eye. They're looking at us with hope and expectation.
Lennox?
I thought Asher was going to go there, but that's fine. You see, for us, we're fine. We don't have the kind of impact on the APNU AFC base. But what we do have, traditionally, a lot of Indigenous peoples would have voted for the PPPC. despite their maltreatment of the people. And with us on scene, we are finding that a lot of the effects that we are having poses a very clear and credible threat to the organization of the PPPC. And it's evident in what Bibi Shadik would have mentioned publicly that Mr. Schuman is out. They want to tarnish my good name as much as they can before we even get into elections, so that they confuse the voters. And that obviously speaks volumes of the fear that is behind their eyes.
Asha, let me ask you this question. In terms of the young people, now from the last election to now, X amount of persons in Guyana would have come to voting age. Is your party focused on exciting these new voters to vote for you?
Yes, we are. Growing up, they keep telling me they were told to vote like a boss, and they weren't of ages yet, but they saw their parents do it, they saw their brothers do it, their sisters, and they said they all feel like clowns. They didn't vote like a boss, they voted like a clown. So Guyanese are intelligent people, let me tell you. They're now more educated about politics than they were many years ago. It's not sheep following sheep anymore. So as we get out there and we speak to them, they're very educated about the issues. They're interested in what we have to say and the solutions that we bring. So our reach to the young people has been great. I'd just like to touch a moment on the question you asked earlier about are we taking their votes and how they feel about it. Yes, we are taking their votes, and they're scared. Look at their reaction. For the first time in 54 years, PPP and APNU was able to agree on something, that they would like to interfere in how we go about our joiner. That's how scared they are. And we will continue to reach out to the people undeterred. We made it clear, we're not supporting PPP, we're not going to support APNU, and the people that are feeling the same like we are coming to us right now.
Right, understood. And I think there's a particular area that has not been the focus of many of the parties, and that is the people who have gotten to voting age from last election to now.
Yes.
And the truth is, as you all have said, these are people who may not anymore be guided by what's happened in history, because people are changing their focus presently. Now, I am aware that with your team at ANUG at New and United Guyana Senior, that with the guidance of yourself and Timothy and a lot of other people you have there has been a push to talk to more of the intelligentsia, so to speak, and to get an outreach with people in and around Georgetown, in and around the middle class kind of reach. What has been the feedback from that kind of outreach?
The feedback from our outreaches have been very good all around, actually. We particularly we have been focusing essentially on areas where support for the two major parties are weak. That's in the business community, in the middle class community, in the professional community, among small business people. We've also been going around to groups of people, ordinary working people hustling for a living in the markets and elsewhere, wherever they congregate. And the responses have been very positive. And so a friend came to me today and said he spent the weekend in Essequibo. He said people in Essequibo know of your party. And we haven't been to Essequibo. We haven't been in any huge outreaches in Essequibo. We've been to Essequibo. They had some publicity. So that people are hearing about us and the other parties as well. And they're coming forward.
Gotcha. Now, with regards to the agents and having your own polling agents, do you plan to appoint agents as a joinder list, or do you plan to appoint people from your own independent perspective?
That is something we have to talk about, because as individual parties, we are not going to be able to field a large number of agents, because we basically don't have the people. But as three political parties, I'm sure we can accumulate as many people as we can and jointly put them out. Doesn't matter which party they represent, but they will go there knowing they represent. Doesn't matter which party appoints them, but they will go there knowing that they represent the interests of all three parties.
Right. Now, one of the interesting things to be on election day itself is actually, as you said earlier, the statement of polls will be posted outside of every polling station. It's basically to get, because our history in announcing who has won the elections has not necessarily been a comfortable and a good one. But we all know that in a matter of hours, you do know. It's a matter of mathematics, which I don't think government has been good at. But what's your thinking with regards to the time span within which the results can be expected?
The problem with the election, we can have the elections. We have a lot of the journalistic profession in Guyana has grown over the past 20-25 years, very substantially, and funding could have been obtained by journalists if they had sought it. They may have done so, I don't know. In order to marshal the results and feed them to the Guyanese people in very quickly and in a responsible manner. And there are a lot of responsible journalists here. That can be done by accumulating this set up a mechanism to get the statements of poll reported to a center, and where the results are assessed and announced, as they do in the United States and elsewhere. People don't remember, but in the 1992 elections, the Elections Commission did that. It announced, it had systems in the very remote communities. It set up systems to give the results of the polls. But those had to be unofficial polls, unofficial results. And there was a reaction against it. And the Elections Commission and the political parties decided no longer will they issue unofficial results.
Right.
Official results taken in a remote interior region, hinterland region. The results from each state of the poll has to be taken to the deputy returning officer's office. When he gets all of those statements of poll, all the deputy returning officers of the region have to take them to the returning officer's office. Each level, they have to be compiled. So all the statements of poll, however many polling stations they have in that region, have to find themselves at their deputy returning officers, where they are compiled and rechecked. Then they are the returning officer, where they are compiled and rechecked. And then that returning officer sends them to GCOM, physically brings them. He can't phone it in. He can't email it in if he has access to email. He has to physically bring it. And that is the official results, and that is when GCOM announces it. And that is why it takes so long. Now, that is ridiculous. And the system should have been established by GCOM or by the independent press and the agencies which help Guyana to have the results, credible results, announced with short time. The political parties know the results.
Correct.
Because they have polling agents at 90% or more of the polling places. Their agents report to them by phone, email, and otherwise. So they know the results before everybody.
Right. Thank you. Now, here's another question that has come into me, and Lennox, I'll go to you with this, but the other two can contribute too. Now, if obviously the PPP and the PNC/APNO AFC has representatives at GCOM, you don't. How do you expect to have your voices heard at GCOM? That's one. And two, have you been meeting, or has the international community been reaching out to you individually or collectively? How do you plan to get your voices out there?
Well, it is very difficult for us to have our voices heard, and that's one of the institutions that we intend on completely reforming. There should be no political party on the Guyana Elections Commission. That was the Carter formula that was meant to be a temporary mechanism for the integrity of elections that both parties had adopted. They felt comfortable with it without ever thinking about the needs of the country. So what want to do is to completely depoliticize the Guyana Elections Commission and ensure that regardless of if at the end of the constitutional reform process that they could feel independent candidates, that their voice will be for any political party, regardless of numbers. That's one. The second component is that we have continuously been engaging with the international community, voice concerns, because the integrity of our institutions need to be looked at with a bit of a suspicious eye based on their previous conduct. And we will continue to dialogue with them to ensure that our voices are heard. And if we cannot represent it at GCOM, they have what I'd say support staff from various countries that we have had dialogue with to ensure that our concerns get registered.
Okay. All right. Now, with regards to the mass campaign, Dr. Kisoon, how do you, I mean, are you more looking at social media? How much would your party have embraced mass campaign? Because I don't think they collectively or singularly there may be the wherewithal to go and have these mass rallies. Is there?
Actually, we are trying to step away from the traditional let us go rally. We're not about rent a crowd. We're not going to hire 50 buses to take people to an area and pretend like we have support in that area. We're going to go out there with our people, talk to the people, talk to them about issues, solutions to the problems that they're facing, and that's how we're going to work it from there. That's what we've been doing. That's how we're getting the responses.
Right. Thank you. Well, gentlemen, lady, it's been wonderful chatting with you. We're at the closing time of our program. And Senior, I'm going to go to you first for your final comments. And, 30 seconds. What's your closing thoughts going forward?
Well, thank you very much for having us. And Globespan has been doing a wonderful job in promoting the political campaign and political realities in Guyana and bringing the news to the people and giving them the opportunity of making an educated choice for the elections. I would urge that the political party, that the people of Guyana, the electorate of Guyana, consider the program that we offer individually. Each of us offer. We used to offer one flagship program each. Three of us have three flagship programs. Consider our offer each, and whichever party you like, to vote for that party and allow the combination to get as many seats as possible, even more than the 10 that Dr. Kisoon has suggested, and so that we bring these behemoths to their knees and allow the people of Guyana to flourish.
Thank you. Lennox, final thoughts?
I would like to urge your supporters once again to not be duped by these partisan political figures at the Guyana Elections Commission. The only institution that has that authority is the courts, and we intend on pursuing and ensuring that the integrity of our list is maintained and that we do not disenfranchise our supporters. I would also like to support Ralph in thanking Globespan and you yourself, Dr. Mahadia. And thank you, Asha and Ralph, for joining into this program. I've found it very, very informational and educational, and I look forward to a lot more. And I hope that at the closing at some point, or maybe continuously on Globespan, that you could continuously agitate for presidential candidates debate. Let the people hear what the presidential candidates have to offer. And I think that would be a rich debate, and we look forward to that going forward.
Indeed, and I must say that Globespan has reached out to the various parties, and we are reaching out to the various parties to see how we can accommodate presidential candidate, because our reach is very unique in terms of the diaspora and the wider world. So it is something we're working on, and we'll certainly be reaching out to the three of you too. Dr. Kisoon, final thoughts, 30 seconds.
All right, of course, sincere gratitude. It was an honor to share this time with you guys tonight. I'd like to say to the population that are on the fence, you no longer have to vote for either PPP or APNU. There is the third force sitting before you tonight. So you can pay attention to us, see where your loyalties lie, the issues that you would like to see change, and vote for a third force. Let the young people have a voice, let there be constitutional reform, and let the population that has been shunned aside have a voice also.
Thank you. And I must, before closing, I must accommodate this question because it is one seeking information. Kevindra Tularam has asked, how can people access your party and your party's personnel?
The new movement?
Yeah, well, yes, I'm going to go to all three of you.
Yes, so our website is www.tnmparty.com. All our information is there, our manifesto is there. It's called the Roadmap to Prosperity. Phone numbers, email, 24 hours available.
Wonderful. Senior?
Go to Facebook, type in a New and United Guyana. We will come up. You'll get everything, all the information. Everything else is there for you.
Thank you. Lennox?
For us, you could do one of two things. Go to Facebook, look for Liberty and Justice Party, and you will see pretty much what we're doing on a day-to-day basis there. And we also have our website, www.voteljp.com. It has our full structure, manifesto, and everything else that you may desire to take a look in there. So it's very easy, very user-friendly.
Thank you. To our viewers out there, have a wonderful night. It's been a pleasure to have these three distinguished personalities on our panel tonight. And to Dr. Kisoon, thank you for being here. Best wishes for a wonderful, successful road ahead. Lennox, same to you and your party. Best wishes. And of course, Senior, best wishes to you and to the New and United movement, New and United Guyana, to Liberty and Justice Party and the new movement. All of you, best wishes, good luck, and know that you have a welcome seat to have such a discussion again before elections on Globespan 24/7. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. Good night to you all.
Thank you, Yog.